Welcome back, Endgame community. It's Chris, and today I'm going to bring you some of my favorite buy low running backs as we head into the second half of the fantasy football. And I got to really quickly mention a couple of big name guys who have seen their value just absolutely plummet, and we got to start with Jonathan Taylor. I know I've had him on here a couple times this year, and I'm sure if you have Jonathan Taylor, you are freaking out right now. But that's the reason why Jonathan Taylor is such a good buy low right now, because whoever has Jonathan Taylor is absolutely freaking out right now about Jonathan Taylor. The move to Sam Ehlinger did not help this offense at all. In fact, it made this offense even worse. Also, this offensive line has shown no signs of getting better throughout the rest of the season. There are definitely red flags here for Jonathan Taylor, and there are definitely reasons to be concerned. But also, this is a 24-year-old running back in the prime of his career who's a generational elite prospect, a generational elite talent. I'm going to buy into the talent and the belief that it will get better for Jonathan Taylor. And the great thing about going out and getting Jonathan Taylor right now is his value is pretty much rock bottom. This is the lowest it's ever been since he was drafted, probably, for Jonathan Taylor. The risk to get Jonathan Taylor is well worth the reward right now, because you're not going to have to give up an absolute stud player to get Jonathan Taylor anymore, because whoever has Jonathan Taylor probably just wants to get rid of him and get anything back for Jonathan Taylor. So go out, try to buy him on the cheap right now. Look, maybe he ends up just being the biggest bust of the entire fantasy season and never gets it going for anybody. But if he does, you'll be happy that you went out, bought low on him, because he absolutely has the talent to be a top 5 rest of season running back. And then another highly drafted running back who did make his return in week 8 is DeAndre Swift. Now, DeAndre Swift didn't have a terrible game, but there are reasons people are probably panicking about DeAndre Swift. Number one, he only had 5 carries, only caught 5 passes. Wasn't really on the field a ton. Number two, Jamal Williams scored 2 touchdowns. People are starting to worry that Jamal Williams is the lead back here and Swift is just going to be kind of a change of pace guy. But if you really look deeper, you see that's not the case at all. DeAndre Swift played 52% of the snaps in this game. And remember, this was the first game back from injury. I'm sure the Lions, are easing him in, slow playing him a little bit. I'm sure we'll see his usage and his workload ramp up, next week and even beyond. And this is still a guy who is an elite fantasy running back. He has elite pass catching ability, which gives him, an incredibly high floor in PPR leagues to go with a great ceiling. People are freaked out right now thinking Jamal Williams is the running back you want in this backfield, not DeAndre Swift. Not to mention people are freaked out that at any moment DeAndre Swift is going to get hurt again. So again, not quite, his value hasn't quite dropped as low as Jonathan Taylor's, but it's still pretty low to where it should be. The risk here versus the reward is well worth it, because if he gets back to his normal workload, which I believe he will, DeAndre Swift has all the potential to be a top 5 rest of season running back. So go out, take the minimal risk, shoot for the moon. This is how you win fantasy championships. Go try to get DeAndre Swift. Now let's move down a little bit deeper and talk about Miles Sanders. This is a guy, keep bringing him up on here, and the buy low window continues to remain open on Miles Sanders. He did score a touchdown here in week 8, but look, big time overshadowed by A.J. Brown, who had a monster game. And he only had 78 yards in this game because, the Eagles rested their starters pretty much the entire fourth quarter. But Miles Sanders is in a great situation. He gets the bulk of the carries in a great offense. He's on a team with a great defense who's going to be leading a lot, going to be in a lot of positive game script, going to get touchdown opportunities. And people still kind of value him as this kind of, should I start him, should I not start him kind of guy. Miles Sanders is a rock solid, every week, don't even think about it, RB2 in your fantasy lineup. And you can get him for less value than that right now, especially if you're deep at wide receiver and you need running back help. Go trade a wide receiver like your wide receiver 3, your wide receiver 4, somebody like that on your bench. Go trade him for Miles Sanders. So if you have a wide receiver sitting on your bench, not a terrible wide receiver, but a good, startable, usable wide receiver just sitting on your bench, go out, trade him for Miles Sanders, and you can have an every week RB2 with upside. Now let's go even a little deeper to a guy who's kind of gaining some steam right now, and that is Khalil Herbert. I talked about him last week. I'm going to talk about him again. The buy low window is closing, but we've seen it now 2 weeks in a row. Khalil Herbert starting to inch up on David Montgomery, and in fact, in week 8, he closed the gap completely and overtook David Montgomery, at least for carries. Not catching any passes, unfortunately, but he did out-carry David Montgomery 16-15 in week 8. This is the first time I can ever remember where both of these guys were healthy and Khalil Herbert got the majority of the carries. Now, granted, he only got one more carry, but the fact that he's gotten to this point has to be encouraging because he's been really good. He's looked great. It's not like he's out there looking terrible and they're giving him work. He's looking good. And I've talked about it with other running backs who are looking better than the kind of the lead back. Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, maybe Tony Pollard, now Khalil Herbert. If this continues, if he becomes the lead back on this offense, he's going to have RB2 value week in and week out because we know this is an offense who A, wants to run the ball a bunch, and B, can run the ball a bunch. Now, the downside here is he doesn't really catch any passes, so he's, definitely limited in that respect. But still, this is a guy really on a lot of waiver wires still. But even if somebody does have him in your league, they probably still view him more as a handcuff rather than a running back that you can start every week. And even with splitting reps with David Montgomery, he has weekly starting value because at any moment he could score a touchdown or break off a big run. So go out, try to trade for Khalil Herbert now before he really does overtake David Montgomery, and then you can't trade for him anymore. And then let's just keep digging deeper and deeper. And how about Raheem Mostert? What a letdown in week 8 in a smash spot against the Lions. Did not come through. But you still have to be encouraged by Raheem Mostert because he still had 14 carries and got a target. The problem is this Miami defense somehow let the Detroit Lions offense roll all over them, and they were just in pass mode the entire game. But the fact that Mostert still got 14 carries and he's still the clear lead back in this offense is a good sign. And again, he's a guy you can put in. Don't feel as good about him as Miles Sanders, but he's a guy you can put in. You can play him on any given week as an RB2 with plenty of upside, and it's not going to take a lot to get him right now. Kind of like what I talked about Miles Sanders. If you have a decent wide receiver just sitting on your bench that you're never going to use, just go out and throw out an offer for Raheem Mostert. We know this guy has upside every week, and he's the lead back in a great offense. So go see if you can get Raheem Mostert while you still can. And now we're getting way deep, but let's talk about Rachaad White, who I also talked about last week. And you have to be thinking that the time is coming for Rachaad White, and you don't want to miss out. What have we seen from Leonard Fournette this year on the ground? Pretty much nothing. He has been awful. The coaches know he has been awful. The beat writers are asking about him. Why has he been so awful? The Bucs have talked about, we need to get this running game going. Now, they're coming off what is kind of referred to as the mini bye because they played on Thursday and they have the long week. I got to think the coaches are getting together and trying to figure out ways to get this running game going. And you know what it might be? It might be Rachaad White because he has looked better than Leonard Fournette each of the last 2 games. And if you look at Rachaad White on the season, his yards per carry has gone up every single game, which is exactly what you want to see from a rookie who's learning the speed in the NFL game. He's gotten better and better as the season has gone on. 4.8 yards per carry last week when Leonard Fournette was under 3. I gotta think that the Bucs are starting to realize Rachaad White gives this offense a jolt that Leonard Fournette just doesn't give them. And I gotta think we're gonna see more and more Rachaad White. Not to mention, we often see rookies get that bump after the bye. They have not had their bye yet. When they have that bye, I bet we see even more Rachaad White. It would not surprise me one bit if by the end of the season, Rachaad White is the leading runner on this team, even if Leonard Fournette is still healthy. So go trade for Rachaad White right now. Look, he's still on a lot of waivers. He should not be on any waivers right now. But if in your league he's not on waivers, go put out a trade for Rachaad White. It won't take much at all because he's doing next to nothing right now as far as fantasy is concerned. So go get him on the cheap before he takes over and becomes a potential league winner. And then finally, let's go deep and talk about Isaiah Pacheco. Another guy like Rachaad White who may just be sitting on your waiver wire, but if he's not, he's worth going out and trying to trade for because, again, going to take almost nothing. A warm body is probably going to be enough to get Isaiah Pacheco right now. But for the first time the whole season, in week 7 before the bye, we saw Pacheco overtake Clyde Edwards-Helaire in terms of snaps. And I just talked about the post-bye bump that we see a lot of times for rookies. Just go back and think about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Did nothing before the bye last year and then was a monster after the bye. We see it year after year. Teams go on the bye, they have a chance to kind of sit down, look at the team, look at what they need, and they start to get rookies more involved. It would not surprise me if in week 9, coming out of the bye, Isaiah Pacheco leads this team in, snaps and touches and everything. And now is the time you want to go get him, because a starting running back in the Chiefs offense is extremely valuable. So again, if he's on waivers, go stash him right now. If he's not, go put out a feeler. Again, you're just going to need to trade a warm body who's scoring a decent amount of fantasy points, and you'll be able to get Isaiah Pacheco. All right, now that you know some of my favorite buy low running backs, you need to know who are some of my favorite buy low wide receivers, plus who to start, who to sit, who could boom. We got you covered. Check out our Week 9 playlist right here. Everything you need to help you win.